Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a journey through time, deep into the heart of ancient Egypt, a world filled with secrets, mystery, and dangers that few have dared to explore. But this isn't just any story. This is about the most perilous jobs that existed beneath the blazing sun and endless sands, where every day was a battle for survival. Picture yourself standing at the edge of the mighty Nile, the warm desert breeze brushing against your skin, carrying scents of lotus and papyrus mixed with dust and sweat. The tranquil river masks the threats hidden beneath its surface. Crocodiles silently waiting, unpredictable currents ready to sweep away the unwary. Here, fishermen cast their nets, knowing that one wrong move could mean their end. Beyond the riverbanks, the desert stretches far and wide, a sea of shifting sands and towering dunes, hiding dangers both natural and man-made. The sun beats down relentlessly, and the slightest miscalculation could cause a collapse of the giant stones quarry workers heave day after day. These men, shipping away massive blocks of limestone and granite, risked crushing injuries or fatal falls every time they scaled the quarry's cliffs. You'll also discover the haunting stories of the tomb builders, men and women who ventured deep underground into labyrinthine burial chambers. Their job was to carve out eternal resting places for pharaohs, but with a constant threat of cave-ins, suffocating air, and venomous snakes, many never saw daylight again. Their sweat and courage built the monuments that still captivate the world. And what of the scribes, those silent keepers of knowledge? While their work seemed safe inking hieroglyphics onto papyrus, the political power tied to their writings made them targets for rival factions. A scribe who penned the wrong words might find themselves in exile, or worse, in the shadows where enemies lurked. Beyond these well-known dangers, few speak of the craftsmen working with molten metals and glass. These artisans stood dangerously close to blazing furnaces, their hands skilled yet vulnerable to burns and poison from toxic fumes. Their creations adorned temples and tombs, but their lives were often sacrificed to the gods of fire and craft. Perfume makers held a secret peril too. Extracting fragrant oils from rare flowers and spices meant working with volatile substances that could ignite unexpectedly, filling workshops with dangerous vapors. One careless spark could turn their entire workspace into a blazing inferno. And then there were the animal handlers keepers of sacred and wild creatures alike. From crocodiles housed in temple pools to venomous snakes used in rituals, their jobs required both courage and calm. A single bite or scratch could be fatal, making every day a silent dance with death. Tonight, as you listen, you're not just an observer, but a traveler stepping into their worn sandals. You feel the grit of the desert, the chill of underground tombs, the crackle of fire in the artisan's workshop. You understand the weight of responsibility they carried, the invisible threats lurking in every shadow. If this story captivates you, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to the channel. Your support breathes life into these ancient whispers, helping more secrets unfold quietly in the night. So settle into your cozy space. Let the ancient world wash over you, and together we'll embark on this dangerous journey through ancient Egypt, one story at a time, whispered softly to guide you into restful sleep. In the vast, scorching deserts of ancient Egypt, the quarry workers were the unsung heroes behind the magnificent monuments that still inspire awe today. Imagine yourself standing at the base of a towering cliff, the blazing sun beating down relentlessly, your skin gritty with sand and sweat. Your hands clutch primitive tools, wooden wedges, copper chisels, and stone hammers as you prepare to carve out colossal blocks of limestone and granite, destined to become the bones of pyramids and temples. Each day here is a perilous dance with death. The towering cliffs are unpredictable. One careless strike or shift in the earth can trigger deadly rockfalls. The workers must navigate precarious ledges, balancing on narrow shelves carved by nature, while massive stones hang precariously above. A single misstep can send both worker and stone tumbling into the rocky abyss below. The physical dangers are only part of the story. The air is thick with dust, choking and stinging the lungs, making every breath a labor. The sun's brutal heat, often exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit, saps strength and blurs vision. Water is scarce and often tainted with grit or salt, causing illness and dehydration. Heat stroke and exhaustion are silent killers that claim many lives without a sound. Lowering giant stones from the quarries requires delicate coordination and nerves of steel. Workers must rig primitive pulley systems and ropes, their hands raw from the strain. As you picture yourself here, feel the tension in every muscle, the pounding heartbeat as you guide a 2-ton block down a ramp. One slip, one frayed rope, and disaster strikes, crushing bones, shattering dreams. Beyond the physical toil, quarry workers lived with social dangers too. Harsh overseers demanded relentless labor, punishing mistakes with whips or worse. Injury meant abandonment. The weak were left to the merciless desert or cruel fate. Medical care was rudimentary, often little more than herbal remedies and prayers to the gods. Yet, amid this harsh world, there was a strange camaraderie. Men shared stories in the shade of rock outcroppings, forged friendships amid danger. Their songs and chants echoed softly, a quiet resistance to despair. They understood their labor was sacred, a vital link in the chain that connected mortal men to the divine. 2 little-known dangers also haunted these workers. First, venomous desert creatures, scorpions and snakes, made the quarries their home. Hiding in crevices or under stones, their bites were swift and deadly, adding an invisible threat to the visible ones. Second, sudden sandstorms could sweep through without warning, blinding and suffocating, forcing workers to seek shelter or risk being buried alive under shifting dunes. A third hidden hazard was the psychological toll. Day after day, working under a merciless sun, facing constant danger, many quarry workers struggled with despair and fear. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on their minds, sometimes driving men to madness or hopelessness. Yet, even in such grim conditions, moments of laughter and hope shone through, small acts of kindness and shared meals offering brief respite. Another rarely told story is that of the families left behind. These men often worked far from home, in remote quarries that isolated them from loved ones. The longing for family and the pain of separation added an emotional burden to an already grueling life. Letters and tokens passed quietly among workers, reminding them of the warmth and life beyond the harsh stone. As you walk in their dust-covered sandals, you feel the weight of centuries, the grit, the sweat, the ever-present shadow of death. The quarry workers' stories remind us of human endurance, sacrifice, and the mysterious forces that shaped one of history's greatest civilizations. Imagine descending into the shadowed depths beneath the scorching desert sands, where tomb builders carved eternal resting places for Egypt's greatest rulers. The air is heavy, thick with dust, and the flickering light of oil lamps casts dancing shadows on rough-hewn walls. You feel the chill that contrasts sharply with the blazing sun outside as the silence presses around you like a shroud. Their work was sacred yet perilous. Each day, these craftsmen and laborers entered narrow tunnels and chambers, chipping away stone to create intricate passageways designed to guide souls safely into the afterlife. But danger lurked everywhere. The risk of sudden cave-ins was constant, threatening to trap and bury workers forever in the darkness. You can almost hear the ominous groans of shifting earth, warning of collapse. As you tread carefully, you notice venomous snakes and scorpions lurking in hidden crevices, their presence a silent threat. Their bites could cause agony or death in an environment where medical help was scarce. Dust clouds stirred by relentless chiseling infiltrate every breath, wearing down lungs and causing coughs that echo in the tunnels. But the tomb builder's danger wasn't just physical. The mental strain was profound. Days blurred into nights as workers spent endless hours underground, cut off from sunlight and the familiar rhythms of life above. Time seemed to dissolve in the darkness, and many suffered from anxiety and claustrophobia. Legends spoke of spirits and curses guarding the tombs, and whispers of these haunted halls unsettled even the bravest. In addition to these hardships, two lesser-known dangers awaited them. First was the threat of toxic mold and fungi that thrived in the damp, stagnant air. These invisible enemies caused illnesses that weakened the workers over time. Second was the relentless psychological weight of secrecy. Tomb construction was highly classified. Workers were sworn to silence under threat of death, forced to hide their true feelings and fears behind stoic faces. Away from the tunnels, families waited anxiously, their loved ones disappearing for weeks or months on end. Communication was rare, and the tomb builders lived with the constant fear of never returning home. The loneliness weighed heavily on their hearts, a burden unseen but deeply felt. Yet amid these dangers, moments of beauty and purpose shone through. The carvings they etched were not mere decoration. They were prayers, stories, and promises to the gods. Every stroke held the hope of immortality, both for the pharaoh and for the craftsman who dared to defy death itself. As you imagine yourself in their dusty sandals, feeling the cold stone beneath your fingertips and the oppressive silence around you, remember this: these tomb builders carried the hopes of an empire, shaping eternity with every chip of their tools. Imagine standing at the edge of the mighty Nile, the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, where river ferrymen braved the unpredictable waters day after day. The river, serene and majestic, hid dangers beneath its surface whirlpools, ready to pull you under. Sharp currents that could dash fragile boats against jagged rocks, and lurking crocodiles whose powerful jaws could snap a man in seconds. Your job was to guide heavy boats laden with people and precious goods across this ever-changing expanse, balancing skill, courage, and a deep respect for the river's unpredictable nature. Each journey was a gamble. Sudden floods transformed calm waters into raging torrents, sweeping away anything in their path. Fierce storms brewed swiftly, darkening the skies and churning the river into a violent beast. You had to read the skies and water with the wisdom of ages, knowing when to set sail and when to seek shelter. The ferrymen's boats, often constructed from bundles of papyrus reeds or lightweight wood, were surprisingly fragile against the Nile's moods. Maneuvering these vessels required expert knowledge of currents, submerged sandbanks, and underwater snags. You would learn to feel the water's every whisper, sensing hidden threats before they became deadly. Human dangers added to their burdens. Bandits and river pirates stalked the waterways, preying on vulnerable travelers and merchants. Ferrymen needed to be vigilant, their hands ready to grasp spears or knives. Betrayals sometimes came from within their own ranks, as greed and desperation tested bonds of trust. Two little-known hazards added layers of peril to their lives. First, the river harbored dangerous waterborne diseases, parasites like bilharzia and schistosomiasis that infected countless souls, weakening bodies and causing long, painful deaths. Medical remedies were limited, often reliant on prayer and ancient herbal lore. Second, the mental strain of solitude weighed heavily. Days passed in isolation on the water, far from families and familiar voices. The endless expanse of river and sky bred loneliness and anxiety, sometimes driving men to despair. But beyond these dangers, the ferrymen played a crucial role in Egypt's lifeblood. They were not mere laborers, but essential conduits for commerce, culture, and communication, weaving the far-flung parts of the kingdom together with every crossing. There were hidden rhythms to their lives as well. At dawn, the mist would rise off the river, painting silver veils over the water, and the ferrymen would sing soft songs, ancient melodies, passed down to calm nerves and honor the river gods. In quiet moments, they offered small gifts or prayers to Hapi, the god of the Nile, hoping for safe passage and bounty. Occasionally, the ferrymen witnessed moments of profound beauty amid their hardships. Flocks of migratory birds skimming the water's surface, lotus flowers blooming along the banks, or the shimmering reflection of stars on a moonlit night. These glimpses reminded them of the delicate balance between life and death, hardship and hope. As you imagine yourself here, gripping the worn oars under a blazing sun, the boat swaying beneath your feet, the river murmurs ancient secrets only the brave dare hear. You sense the fragile thread that ties life and death on the Nile, an eternal dance beneath the desert sky. Picture yourself standing inside a blazing workshop deep in the heart of ancient Egypt, where metal workers forge tools, weapons, and ornaments under the relentless heat of fiery furnaces. The air shimmers with heat and smoke, the clang of hammer on anvil ringing in your ears. Sparks fly like tiny stars as molten metal is shaped by hands skilled yet vulnerable. These craftsmen face dangers both obvious and hidden. Working with molten bronze and copper, the risk of severe burns was ever present. A single splash of molten metal could cause life-threatening injuries. The furnaces themselves were unforgiving, made of clay and stone, prone to sudden collapses that trapped workers beneath deadly rubble and flames. The workshops were often dark and cramped, filled with toxic fumes rising from burning charcoal and smelting ores. Long-term exposure to smoke and metals led to respiratory diseases and poisoning, illnesses slowly stealing life and vitality. Yet despite the hardships, metal workers were revered for their skill, creating items essential for war, worship, and daily life. Beyond physical hazards, the job demanded immense concentration and endurance. The intense heat, noisy environment, and constant risk required workers to develop mental resilience. Mistakes where costly flawed weapons could mean defeat in battle, while broken tools disrupted entire construction projects. Hidden dangers included the handling of arsenic and other toxic elements mixed with metals to improve strength and shine. These poisons were invisible but deadly, creeping into the bodies of workers and causing mysterious ailments that slowly wore down their health. Another overlooked peril was the social isolation faced by metal workers. Their workshops often stood on the outskirts of towns due to smoke and noise, separating them from community life and support networks. This isolation added emotional strain to their already hazardous existence. A little-known risk came from the intense physical strain. Metalworking required continuous heavy lifting of raw ores, stoking furnaces with coal, and swinging heavy hammers, leading to chronic musculoskeletal injuries, debilitating fatigue, and early physical decline. Moreover, sudden explosions or furnace flare-ups could occur when moisture or impurities ignited unexpectedly. These catastrophic events caused severe burns, disfigurement, and sometimes death, striking fear into even the most experienced workers. Despite all this, metalworkers held a secret pride. Their craft was seen as a bridge between mortal skill and divine power. The tools and weapons they forged were believed to carry the blessing of gods, making them vital to the strength and survival of their civilization. As you imagine yourself here, feeling the blistering heat and hearing the rhythmic pounding of hammers, you glimpse a world of fire and fury where creation and destruction lied side by side, where every piece forged could change the fate of empires. Imagine yourself seated in a quiet chamber with the pyramid architects of ancient Egypt, the brilliant minds charged with designing colossal monuments that would reach for the heavens and defy the passage of time. Their craft blended mathematics, spirituality, and visionary innovation in a way few could understand. These architects carried enormous burdens. Their designs had to be flawless. Even a minor miscalculation could lead to disaster walls collapsing, passages misaligned, or sacred geometry disrupted. Pharaohs demanded perfection, and failure was met not just with disgrace, but harsh punishment. The architects bore the weight of entire projects on their shoulders, guiding vast labor forces with nothing but rudimentary tools and the naked eye. Political dangers lurked just as much as structural ones. Rival factions at court coveted influence and sought to undermine their work, sometimes spreading rumors or attempting sabotage. Architects needed not only technical skill, but political acumen, walking a delicate path between power and peril. The knowledge they possessed was deeply secret. Passed down through oral tradition and coded symbols, it was a guarded treasure available only to the elite few. They studied the stars, mapping celestial patterns onto stone, believing the pyramids to be earthly gateways, linking the mortal world to divine realms. Sacred geometry shaped every angle and curve, imbuing the structures with cosmic meaning. Beyond these well-known facts, several hidden dangers shadowed the lives of pyramid architects. One was the immense psychological strain of holding such responsibility in isolation, often cut off from family and friends. The pressure to conceal knowledge, to bear secrets that could topple their careers or lives if revealed, weighed heavily on their minds. Sleepless nights haunted by visions of crumbling stones and angry pharaohs were common. Another peril came from the physical environment. Architects often climbed precarious scaffolding and examined high walls during construction, risking fatal falls in a time without safety measures. Injuries or death were not uncommon, yet their work demanded constant presence and oversight. The agony of broken bones or crushed limbs was often borne in silence. A third little-known challenge was the threat of spiritual backlash. Many believed that disturbing the earth and constructing such grand tombs risked angering the gods or awakening restless spirits. Architects sometimes faced rituals or prayers to protect themselves, hoping to ward off curses or misfortune. Some even claimed to hear whispers in the stones or see ghostly apparitions guarding the sacred grounds. Additionally, pyramid architects had to master the art of resource management in a world without modern logistics. Securing and transporting massive quantities of stone, timber, and labor required intricate planning. Failure could stall projects for months or even years, risking royal displeasure and personal ruin. Finally, the architects lived under constant scrutiny. Their reputations were fragile, and envy was common. They had to navigate the dangerous waters of court politics, appeasing jealous rivals while ensuring the pharaoh's vision was realized. A single misstep could lead to exile or worse. As you imagine sitting beside these masters, feeling the quiet intensity of their minds, weaving stone and spirit, you glimpse the delicate balance of genius and danger that shape these timeless monuments. Monuments that still whisper their secrets across the ages. Imagine yourself seated in the quiet chambers of ancient Egypt's scribes, surrounded by stacks of papyrus scrolls, ink pots, and reed pens. These men and women were the secret keepers of knowledge, power, and fate guardians of the written word, in a world where language held immense weight. While their work seemed peaceful, beneath the quiet scratching of reeds lay a world filled with invisible dangers. Scribes wielded extraordinary influence. Their hands crafted the stories of pharaohs, recorded laws, and inscribed sacred rituals. A single stroke of their pen could immortalize a ruler's glory or erase a name from history, condemning enemies to oblivion. This power made scribes targets of political intrigue, envy, and danger. One careless error, an unintended phrase, or a miscopied word might lead to exile, imprisonment, or even death. Physically, the dangers were less obvious, but equally real. Long hours hunched over scrolls led to chronic eye strain, debilitating headaches, and joint pain. The inks they used made from toxic minerals like lead and copper often stained their hands, causing slow poisoning. Dust from papyrus and charcoal filled poorly ventilated rooms, leading to respiratory illnesses that worsened with time. Beyond these known hazards, scribes faced hidden challenges that wore on their minds and spirits. The mental exhaustion of memorizing vast amounts of knowledge, from legal codes to religious texts, demanded constant vigilance. The pressure to maintain absolute accuracy in complex hieroglyphs created stress that sometimes resulted in anxiety and sleepless nights. Scribes also lived in social isolation. Their role required discretion and secrecy, cutting them off from the daily lives of others. They were entrusted with confidential information and state secrets, and breaches of trust were severely punished. This isolation bred loneliness, as their closest companions were the words they wrote rather than people around them. Another peril lurked beyond the safety of their chambers. Scribes often served as messengers and envoys, traveling great distances between cities, temples, and courts. These journeys exposed them to the harsh realities of desert travel: blistering heat, scarcity of water, bandit attacks, and treacherous terrain. Despite their scholarly nature, they had to learn to navigate dangers more commonly faced by warriors and traders. In addition, scribes were sometimes caught in the crossfire of political upheavals. Aligning with the wrong faction, even inadvertently, could result in severe consequences. Many had to master the art of subtlety and coded language, weaving hidden meanings into their texts to protect themselves and their patrons. A little-known challenge was the threat of counterfeiting and forgery. Rival scribes or political enemies sometimes created false documents to manipulate laws or history, putting honest scribes at risk of blame and punishment. Maintaining the integrity of records was a constant battle. Scribes also dealt with the precarious balance of power and patronage. Their survival often depended on pleasing influential figures, requiring diplomacy and subtlety. A misstep could lead to disgrace or worse. Lastly, the gradual decline of eyesight and physical health often forced scribes into early retirement or obscurity. Their identities faded as quickly as the ink on ancient scrolls, their sacrifices unsung, but vital to civilization's memory. Despite these perils, scribes remained devoted to their calling. They were the custodians of culture, history, and law, preserving the legacy of a civilization long vanished. Their work was a silent testament to human endurance, the power of words to build and destroy. As you imagine yourself here, quill in hand, the weight of knowledge pressing down like a heavy tome, you feel the silent dangers lurking behind every scroll, every secret kept, every fate sealed by the stroke of a pen. Imagine yourself standing tall at the grand gates of a sprawling royal palace, where the pharaoh's elite guards silently keep watch. These men are more than just soldiers. They are the living shield of the kingdom, sworn to protect the ruler whose voice commands life and death. The air is thick with tension, every shadow potentially hiding a threat. Being a royal guard meant living a life where honor intertwined with constant danger. The guards patrolled vast courtyards and labyrinthine halls, their sharp eyes trained to detect the faintest movement or whisper. They carried heavy spears and shields, symbols of their duty and instruments of survival. Long hours beneath the blazing Egyptian sun, clad in armor, tested their endurance and willpower. Threats came not only from outside enemies, but also from within. Palace intrigues, jealous courtiers, and assassins lurking in the dark corners were ever-present dangers. One moment of distraction could spell doom. Guards had to balance loyalty with suspicion, for even a friend might betray them in the deadly game of power. Physical exhaustion was a constant companion. Wearing heavy armor under the relentless sun caused heat stroke, dehydration, and muscle strain. Medical care was rudimentary, and injuries often went untreated, forcing guards to push through pain and fatigue. The psychological toll was equally taxing. The stress of constant vigilance bred anxiety and sometimes paranoia. Royal guards were also isolated by their position. Bound by strict codes of secrecy and loyalty, many lived apart from their families, cut off from the warmth of home. This solitude weighed heavily, leading some to despair or reckless behavior. The pressure to uphold an impeccable reputation added another layer of strain. Any sign of weakness could lead to disgrace, exile, or worse. Beyond these known hardships, there were hidden dangers few speak of. The risk of forced complicity loomed large. Guards were sometimes ordered to carry out morally troubling acts, silencing dissenters, enforcing cruel punishments, or participating in political purges. Refusing was not an option, and the conflict between duty and conscience tore many apart. Another overlooked peril was the threat of poison. Assassins favored subtle methods. A tainted meal or drink could strike without warning. Guards had to be cautious, not only in battle, but also at banquets and ceremonies, constantly wary of betrayal. Additionally, the role demanded mastery over diplomacy and intimidation. Guards often served as intermediaries between the pharaoh and officials or foreign dignitaries. Their demeanor and presence could influence delicate negotiations, making them pivotal players behind the scenes. Lastly, many guards were burdened by the knowledge that their own lives were expendable. They were shadows serving a ruler who might turn on them without hesitation. Loyalty was rewarded with honor, but also with a reminder that no one, not even a royal guard, was truly safe. As you stand among these guardians, Feeling the weight of their armor and the tension in the air, you sense the immense pressure, the invisible dangers, and the unyielding duty beneath the pharaoh's watchful gaze. A world where every breath could be the last. Imagine stepping into a fragrant workshop hidden away in the bustling streets of ancient Egypt, where perfume makers labor over delicate oils and precious resins. These artisans craft scents that captivate pharaohs and gods alike, weaving fragrances that tell stories of love, power, and mystery. Yet, behind the sweet aromas lies a world filled with unseen dangers and whispered secrets. Working with rare and exotic ingredients, myrrh, frankincense, lotus petals, and potent, sometimes deadly toxins, the perfume makers faced constant risks. Extracting oils required boiling, pressing, and distilling, all involving open flames and volatile compounds. A single spark could ignite a devastating fire, consuming the workshop and everyone inside. Many of the plants and materials they handled were poisonous. Exposure to toxic fumes or prolonged skin contact caused dizziness, burns, and even death. Without protective gear, perfume makers risked poisoning themselves daily, their delicate noses both a tool and a hazard. Some developed chronic respiratory illnesses from inhaling fumes that would cripple their lungs over time. The art demanded patience and precision. Balancing scents was a careful science where a single wrong mixture could ruin batches and livelihoods. Pressure to produce perfect perfumes for royalty weighed heavily. Failure could mean not only economic ruin, but social disgrace or worse. Competition was fierce, and envy brewed silently in the shadows. Beyond these known dangers, perfume makers faced social stigma. Their work was often linked to magic and witchcraft, arousing suspicion and fear. Many operated in secrecy, hiding their craft behind locked doors. The fine line between revered artist and accused sorcerer was perilously thin. Another danger came from within. The recipes for prized perfumes were jealously guarded secrets. Apprenticeships were both an honor and a risk. Betrayal by a trusted apprentice stealing formulas could spark deadly feuds or ruin reputations. The fear of espionage made perfume workshops guarded places where trust was earned slowly and broken swiftly. Perfume makers also endured hazardous working environments. Poorly ventilated workshops filled with toxic smoke and boiling liquids created a relentless assault on their health. Some suffered from burns, skin diseases, or vision problems, yet their dedication pushed them onward. Beyond the workshop, many perfume makers traveled long distances to acquire rare ingredients. These journeys exposed them to harsh climates, unfamiliar diseases, and dangerous terrain. Traveling caravans faced bandits and the unforgiving desert sun. The search for exotic flowers and spices was as perilous as it was essential. Hidden still, a subtle psychological toll shadowed their lives. Constant exposure to potent aromas could cause headaches, nausea, and disorientation. The delicate balance between sensory mastery and sensory overload was a daily struggle. Their passion for scent demanded sacrifice on many levels. Despite these challenges, perfume makers held a secret pride. Their art was a bridge between mortal pleasure and divine worship. The fragrances they created were believed to carry blessings from the gods, making their craft sacred and vital. As you inhale the exotic aromas and imagine their delicate hands weaving scents of power and mystery, you realize the perfume maker's world was one of beauty and peril, a world where every drop carried a risk as potent as its scent. Imagine standing at the edge of the mighty Nile, the life-giving artery of ancient Egypt, where fishermen cast their nets into waters both abundant and treacherous. The river's surface shimmers under the blazing sun, but beneath lies a world of peril-silent predators, unpredictable currents, and shifting tides that can claim the unwary. The Nile teems with fish catfish, tilapia, and countless other species that sustain villages and cities alike. Yet fishermen face constant dangers. Crocodiles lurk silently, their powerful jaws snapping shut with deadly precision. One bite can mean instant death or a slow, painful fate. Swift currents and sudden floods transform calm waters into raging torrents, capable of capsizing fragile boats and sweeping fishermen into watery graves. Their vessels, often simple reed boats or small wooden skiffs, are fragile in the face of the river's wrath. Navigating these waters requires expert knowledge and steady hands. Nets and traps demand care and strength. Sharp fish spines, tangled lines, and hooks cause painful injuries, risking infection in an era without modern medicine. Long hours under the relentless sun bring exhaustion and dehydration. Fishermen face heat stroke and sunburn, often with little relief. Their work begins before dawn and stretches into twilight, their survival hinging on the river's generosity. Economic uncertainty shadows their lives. A poor catch means hunger for their families. Seasonal floods and droughts disrupt the ecosystem, threatening livelihoods. Fishermen depend on the river's caprice, respecting its power while challenging it for survival. Hidden dangers add layers of risk. Waterborne diseases such as schistosomiasis, caused by parasites thriving in the Nile, sap strength and shortened lives. Poor sanitation and contaminated water worsened health issues, silently weakening entire communities. Psychological strain is another unseen hazard. Long hours spent alone or with only a few companions on isolated waters breed loneliness and anxiety. The constant awareness of lurking dangers keeps nerves taut. Many fishermen developed rituals and prayers to appease the river gods, seeking protection and favor. An often overlooked peril was the threat posed by hippos, creatures that, despite their docile appearance, are fiercely territorial and capable of violent attacks. Encounters with hippos could result in severe injury or death, forcing fishermen to constantly adapt their routes and techniques. Fishermen also faced conflicts with neighboring villages or rival fishing groups. Territorial disputes sometimes escalated to violence, adding a human threat to natural dangers. The knowledge of the river's moods and secret dangers was passed down orally through generations. Stories spoke of monstrous fish and spirits inhabiting the depths, a blend of observation and myth that guided fishermen's choices and respect for the Nile. As you imagine yourself here, feeling the cool river breeze and the tension of the unknown lurking below, you step into a world where every catch could be a blessing or a curse. Imagine yourself standing under the relentless Egyptian sun, surrounded by vast fields of golden grain swaying gently in the desert breeze. You are one of the harvesters, wielding a sharp sickle, working from dawn until dusk to gather the crops that feed an empire. The work is vital, yet fraught with dangers, both seen and unseen. The physical demands are brutal. Hours bent over cutting stalks lead to aching backs, blistered hands, and exhaustion. The sharp edges of sickles cut more than just grain accidental wounds were common, often festering without proper care, turning minor injuries into serious infections. The heat beats down mercilessly, with little shade or water to cool aching bodies. Heat stroke claims many in silence. Fields are not only home to crops, but also to hidden threats. Venomous snakes and scorpions hide in the tall stalks, striking swiftly and silently. Their bites can cause severe pain or death, adding an ever-present fear to the daily toil. Swarms of biting insects torment workers, while dust stirred by harvesting aggravates respiratory ailments. Beyond natural dangers, grain harvesters faced economic uncertainty and social hardship. Many were seasonal laborers, forced to migrate following the harvest, leaving behind families and homes. Competition for fertile land led to disputes and sometimes violent clashes. The constant movement bred instability, hardship, and isolation. Two lesser-known hazards affected these workers. The first was grain dust exposure, which caused chronic respiratory diseases, allergies, and debilitating lung conditions, shortening lifespans. The second was malnutrition. Despite their critical role, harvesters often lacked sufficient nutrition, their labor sapping strength faster than the meager rations could replenish it. Psychological strain also cast a heavy shadow. The relentless, back-breaking work, with no guarantee of security, pressed on their minds. To find solace, harvesters turned to rituals and prayers to deities like Osiris and Geb, hoping for protection, a bountiful yield, and safe return home. Superstitions about curses or bad omens added to the mental burden. Additionally, harvesters had to contend with seasonal flooding of the Nile. While floods brought fertile soil, they could also destroy crops unexpectedly or trap workers in waterlogged fields. These floods required rapid action to salvage what they could, often in dangerous conditions. Despite all these dangers, grain harvesters formed close-knit communities, sharing stories, songs, and food when possible. Their resilience underpinned the strength of ancient Egypt, ensuring the survival of generations. As you stand among the waving stalks, feeling the sun's harsh glare and the sting of a scorpion's tail, you grasp the true cost of this treacherous task, a silent sacrifice feeding a civilization's glory. Imagine yourself standing on the sun-baked plains of ancient Egypt, bow in hand, eyes fixed on a distant target. You are an archer and elite warrior whose skill with the bow can turn the tide of battle or defend the kingdom's borders. But mastery comes with deadly risks and relentless training. Archers faced dangers beyond the battlefield. Their practice required long hours of drawing heavy bows, straining muscles to near breaking point. Repetitive motions caused injuries to fingers, wrists, and shoulders. Precision demanded intense mental focus. A moment's distraction could mean a missed shot or injury. On the battlefield, archers stood exposed, vulnerable to enemy swords, spears, and rival arrows. They had to move swiftly, ducking and dodging, often while aiming and firing. Fatigue from long marches, harsh weather, and the chaos of combat added to their peril. Death could come swiftly, not just from enemy weapons, but from exhaustion or heat stroke. Beyond physical risks, archers bore psychological burdens. The pressure of protecting family and homeland weighed heavily, as every arrow loosed could mean life or death for comrades. Training was strict, discipline rigid, and failure met with harsh punishments. Some archers lived in fear of disappointing their leaders or bringing shame upon their clans. Hidden dangers included faulty equipment. Poorly crafted bows could snap under tension, releasing arrows uncontrollably, causing self-injury or loss of combat advantage. Arrows tipped with poisons used for hunting or warfare demanded careful handling. Accidental skin contact or wounds could be fatal. Another peril was the unpredictable desert environment. Archers faced scorching heat that sapped strength and concentration, sudden sandstorms reducing visibility to near zero, and biting insects that distracted or debilitated. Dehydration and sunburn were constant threats. Archers were also vulnerable to disease. Close quarters in camps spread infections. Wounds could become septic without proper care. Psychological trauma from witnessing death and destruction led some to despair or withdrawal. An overlooked risk was political intrigue. Archers loyal to different factions could find themselves caught in power struggles, forced to choose sides or face exile and death. Their skills made them valuable, but also targets. Training sometimes involved dangerous rituals believed to enhance aim or courage, involving exposure to extreme conditions or intoxicating substances, which could harm health. Despite all these hazards, archers held a revered status. Their deadly precision shaped battles and protected the realm. As you nock your arrow and draw the string, feel the tension in your muscles, the focus sharpening your mind, and the heavy burden resting on your shoulders. Each shot could mean victory or your last. Imagine yourself weaving through the bustling marketplace of ancient Egypt, a vibrant tapestry of colors, sounds, and scents. The air is thick with the aroma of spices, freshly baked bread, and exotic goods brought from distant lands. Traders and merchants call out their wares, bargaining fiercely for profit in a world where fortunes can be made or lost in a single day. But beneath the lively surface, dangers lurk, threatening lives and livelihoods. Thieves and bandits preyed on the crowded marketplaces and the caravans that crisscrossed deserts and mountains. Pickpockets blended into crowds, stealing coins and valuables with swift, unseen hands. Armed gangs ambushed traders on dusty roads, their attacks sudden and brutal, leaving survivors to wander aimlessly in search of help. Merchants had to be constantly vigilant, guarding their goods and treasure against both human and natural threats. The long journeys required for trade were fraught with perils. Caravans crossed unforgiving deserts under scorching sun and freezing nights, risking dehydration, sandstorms, and sudden ambushes by hostile tribes. Sea merchants faced treacherous waters, navigating storms, pirates, and reefs that could shatter ships. The loss of a single caravan could mean ruin or even starvation for entire communities. Markets themselves posed health risks. Poor sanitation, crowded stalls, and the mingling of people from far-flung places spread infectious diseases rapidly. Outbreaks of fever, plague, or respiratory illnesses could decimate populations, with merchants acting as both carriers and victims. The fear of illness compounded the physical exhaustion of the trade. Psychological pressures were immense. Merchants lived with the constant stress of financial uncertainty, the fear of betrayal, and the need to maintain reputation. A false accusation or ruined deal could lead to social ostracism or worse. Trust was rare and precious, carefully guarded through oaths and alliances. Hidden dangers added complexity. Counterfeit goods, fake jewelry, watered-down perfumes, and adulterated spices were common, undermining trust and provoking violent disputes. Political upheaval and shifting laws could abruptly close trade routes, confiscate goods, or impose heavy taxes, leaving merchants stranded. Merchant families often bore the weight of these risks silently. Long separations strained relationships. Loved ones left behind faced poverty or kidnapping. Some traders hired guards or mercenaries for protection, adding expense and danger. Rival factions within marketplaces competed ruthlessly. Acts of sabotage, destroying goods, spreading rumors, manipulating prices, were frequent tactics. The marketplace was as much a battlefield as any war zone, where cunning and strength determined survival. Physical hardships were severe. Loading and unloading heavy goods, standing hours under the harsh sun, inhaling dust and smoke, and the constant travel wore down bodies. Chronic pain, exhaustion, and illness were common companions. Additionally, merchants had to navigate cultural differences and language barriers. Misunderstandings could lead to conflicts or lost opportunities. Diplomacy and adaptability were as crucial as strength and courage. Despite these hardships, merchants were the lifeblood of ancient Egypt's economy and culture. They connected empires, brought new ideas and technologies, and wove a network of wealth and influence that shaped history. As you weave through these crowded streets, feel the pulse of commerce and danger mingled together, understanding the fragile balance that defined the vibrant, perilous world of ancient Egypt's traders and merchants. Imagine yourself in the dusty courtyards and temple precincts of ancient Egypt, where animal handlers labor amidst the calls of exotic creatures and the earthy scents of hay, dung, and fur. From majestic horses that thunder in chariot races to sacred crocodiles basking in temple pools, these handlers care for and control animals essential to daily life, warfare, and religious rites. Yet beneath this vital work lies a world fraught with dangers, seen and unseen. The bond between handler and beast is delicate and perilous. Training horses for battle or racing demands courage and finesse. A sudden spook or kick can break bones or end lives. Managing wild animals, snakes coiled in ritual baskets or crocodiles kept for temple worship, requires nerves of steel. One misstep could mean a fatal bite or mauling. Physical injuries are commonplace. Bites, scratches, trampling wounds, and poisonings are daily hazards. Without modern medicine, even minor wounds risked infection and death. Exposure to dust, flies, and the burning sun brought chronic respiratory illnesses and debilitating fatigue. Mental strain runs deep. The constant tension of trust and fear, isolation from community life, and the pressure to maintain control over unpredictable creatures weigh heavily on handlers. Many lived apart from family, in stables or remote temple areas, heightening loneliness. Several hidden dangers complicate their work. Zoonotic diseases, deadly infections transmitted from animals, were common yet poorly understood. Plagues, parasites, and chronic ailments quietly claimed lives. Handlers faced religious scrutiny too. Animals were sacred symbols, and failure to properly care for them could lead to accusations of witchcraft or sacrilege, punishable by exile or death. Training young or wild animals presented extraordinary risks. Calming a rebellious foal, taming a juvenile crocodile, or accustoming venomous snakes to ritual use required patience and bravery. Mistakes often led to injury or loss of valuable beasts. Handlers often doubled as performers, showcasing trained animals in royal courts or festivals. These public displays demanded flawless precision. Failure brought public shame or severe punishment. Political dangers also shadowed their lives. Royal animal handlers were entangled in court intrigues and power struggles. Their loyalty was constantly tested, making them vulnerable to manipulation and betrayal. Physical demands were relentless. Feeding, cleaning, and training animals required strength and endurance, often under harsh climates. Long hours, relentless toil, and psychological pressure combined to shorten lifespans. In addition, handlers sometimes faced theft or sabotage from rival factions jealous of their prized animals or status. Protecting valuable beasts required vigilance and sometimes violent defense. Their expertise extended beyond care to breeding, healing, and ritual use. They balanced practical knowledge with spiritual beliefs, honoring animals as divine symbols while ensuring their survival. Despite these challenges, animal handlers were respected for their unique skills. Their work sustained agriculture, transport, defense, and religion, weaving together the fabric of Egyptian civilization. As you stand amid restless creatures and watchful eyes, feeling the coarse texture of hides and the quick flick of tails and scales, you step into a world where survival depends on respect, control, and a fragile harmony, a world of constant risk and resilience. Imagine yourself walking through the shadowed halls of an ancient Egyptian temple, where priests of dark rituals weave secret ceremonies in whispers and smoke. Cloaked in linen robes, surrounded by flickering candles, sacred symbols, and thick incense, these men wield powers few dare to comprehend. Yet their lives are fraught with danger, physical, spiritual, and psychological. These priests perform rituals invoking gods both benevolent and terrifying. Their ceremonies involve rare herbs, animal sacrifices, and cryptic chants meant to manipulate fate and open portals to the afterlife. A single mistake, a mispronounced word, or forgotten symbol could invoke curses, misfortune, or divine wrath, threatening themselves and entire communities. Their knowledge of forbidden magic and necromancy isolates them. They live apart from common folk, bound by secrecy and silence. Exposure or betrayal could mean exile, torture, or death, at mortal hands or through supernatural vengeance. Physical dangers abound. Handling toxic substances, poisonous plants, snake venoms, and dangerous animals used in rites exposes priests to injury and chronic illness. Prolonged fasting, sleep deprivation, and exposure to harsh elements during ceremonies weaken bodies. Some suffered lasting damage from inhaling incense smoke daily. The psychological toll is immense. Priests dwell in liminal spaces between worlds, haunted by visions, voices, and nightmares. Paranoia and anxiety grip many, burdened by secret knowledge few can share. Political intrigue infects temple life. Rival factions vie for power, sometimes resorting to poison, blackmail, or assassination. Priests navigate shifting alliances in a dangerous game where trust is scarce. A hidden peril is spiritual isolation. Bound by vows of silence and ritual purity, priests sacrifice personal relationships and normal human contact, leading to loneliness, despair, and sometimes madness. Some turn to forbidden substances or secretive rites seeking relief. Ethical dilemmas plague them. Serving gods demanding sacrifice and obedience often conflicts with conscience. Some secretly rebelled, torn between duty and morality, while others used their knowledge for political gain. Beyond ritual, priests acted as healers and keepers of ancient wisdom, responsible for preserving sacred texts and healing arts. This role brought reverence, but also envy and fear from others. Another little-known risk involved their role as intermediaries with the dead. Priests who conducted funerary rites sometimes reported disturbing visions or encounters with restless spirits, blurring lines between reality and hallucination. The constant weight of their sacred duties forged lives cursed by knowledge and peril. Their rituals were believed to sustain cosmic balance and the pharaoh's divine right, making failure unthinkable. As you walk these ancient corridors, feel the chill of stone and flickering candlelight. You glimpse a life woven with mystery and danger, a life where every breath risks wrath and every prayer seeks salvation. Imagine yourself standing beneath the relentless Egyptian sun in a vast camp where thousands of slaves toil endlessly. Their bodies bear the marks of ceaseless labor, hands cracked and raw, muscles aching under heavy burdens, faces etched with exhaustion and quiet despair. These men and women are the unseen architects of Egypt's greatness, yet their stories remain buried beneath the monuments they built. The daily grind begins before dawn. Slaves are roused by harsh overseers, their cries echoing as they drag massive stones across dusty plains. The physical demands are brutal: lifting, carrying, chiseling, mixing mortar, and erecting scaffolds that stretch toward the sky. Injuries are common: crushed limbs, broken bones, sunstroke, and exhaustion plague the workforce. Medical care is rudimentary or non-existent. Many die from untreated wounds or diseases. Fear pervades every moment. Punishments for mistakes or defiance are severe whippings, beatings, and public humiliation. Escape is nearly impossible, surrounded by vast desert and armed guards. Families are torn apart. Hope is a rare luxury. Psychological suffering is profound. Stripped of freedom and dignity, slaves endure constant humiliation and despair. Some find fleeting solace in whispered prayers, songs, or camaraderie. Others succumb to madness. Hidden dangers multiply their plight. Overcrowded, unsanitary quarters breed diseases like cholera, dysentery, and respiratory infections that spread rapidly. Malnutrition weakens bodies, sapping strength needed for backbreaking labor. Mental strain leads to breakdowns, suicides, and violence. Children suffer terribly. Forced into labor young, they are denied education and childhood, trapped in cycles of exploitation and misery. Specialized roles bring unique risks. Miners work in dark tunnels, prone to collapse and toxic gases. Sailors face storms and shipwrecks. Cleaners handle hazardous materials risking poisoning. Social dynamics in camps are volatile. Rivalries, alliances, theft, and punishments create a tense, dangerous environment. Trust is scarce, survival paramount. Some slaves serve as artisans or scribes, gaining relative privileges, but facing court intrigues and political dangers. Spiritual struggles haunt many. Some find comfort in faith. Others feel forsaken. Secret acts of rebellion, subtle resistance, and shared stories keep hope alive in darkness. Burial rites for slaves are often minimal or denied, adding final indignity to harsh lives. Despite suffering, their labor forged wonders that echo through time. Their sacrifice forms the silent foundation beneath Egypt's eternal glory. As you stand amid dust and sweat, feeling the weight of countless broken lives, you glimpse the brutal cost behind civilization's splendor, a hidden world beneath timeless stone. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the vast, unforgiving desert that borders the Nile Valley. As a desert guide, your knowledge and skills are the difference between life and death for travelers, traders, and caravans daring to cross the shifting sea of sand. Your feet know every dune and rock. Your eyes read the sun and stars as maps. Yet the desert is a relentless adversary, hiding dangers that test even the most seasoned guides. Your days begin before dawn to avoid the scorching heat, leading weary travelers through labyrinthine dunes where the landscape shifts with every gust of wind. Sandstorms can rise without warning, blinding and suffocating, threatening to bury entire caravans under mounds of sand. Water is scarce and rationed carefully. A single misstep could lead to dehydration, heat stroke, and death. Wild animals, snakes, scorpions, and jackals lurk in the sands, their venom a silent threat. The desert's vast emptiness can induce disorientation and despair, causing even the strongest to lose their way or hope. Mirages play tricks on eyes and minds, and the relentless sun beats down mercilessly. Beyond natural hazards, desert guides face human dangers, and its prowl isolated caravans, striking swiftly before vanishing into the dunes. Guides must be skilled in combat, negotiation, and deception to protect their charges. The desert fosters harsh rivalries between tribes, sometimes erupting into violent clashes. Hidden dangers include the toll of solitude. Months spent isolated wear on body and mind. Guides endure loneliness, anxiety, and sometimes hallucinations born of exhaustion and stress. Mental resilience is as vital as physical stamina. Some turn to rituals, prayers, or substances to steady nerves amid endless silence. Guides also contend with shifting political landscapes. Orders and alliances change, making passage dangerous. They navigate not only geography, but complex tribal and imperial politics, risking betrayal or imprisonment. Resource scarcity beyond water adds to their burdens. Food supplies are limited and must be rationed strictly. Guides make difficult choices, balancing nourishment against the needs of their charges. Seasonal extremes, compound challenges, frigid nights, bring hypothermia risks. Sudden storms cause flash floods, and searing days drain strength. Preparation and adaptability are vital. An often overlooked hazard is the psychological weight of responsibility. Every decision carries life or death stakes, and the fear of failure haunts many guides. The pressure to protect lives while navigating merciless terrain breeds stress and sleepless nights. Additionally, guides sometimes face spiritual challenges. Desert landscapes are often regarded as sacred or haunted. Encounters with mysterious phenomena or omens can unsettle even the most experienced, blending superstition with survival. Despite these dangers, desert guides are revered. Their knowledge sustains trade, culture, and survival, weaving the threads of civilization across hostile sands. As you imagine yourself here, feeling shifting sands beneath your feet and a blazing sun overhead, you enter a world where every step is a challenge, every decision carries weight, and survival depends on the wisdom of those who hold the desert's secrets. Imagine yourself standing in the dusty, sun-baked quarries of ancient Egypt, where stone carvers tirelessly transform massive blocks of granite and limestone into statues, reliefs, and hieroglyphs meant to endure for millennia. Their craft, though revered, is fraught with relentless danger and hardship, an unending battle between creativity and survival. The quarry environment is brutal. The scorching sun beats down mercilessly, baking exposed skin and sapping energy. Fine stone dust fills the air, infiltrating lungs and eyes with every hammer strike. Flying shards of rock threaten every limb. The constant clatter of chisels against stone forms a harsh soundtrack to exhaustion and pain. Accidents happen daily. Falling stones crush limbs, slips fracture bones, and unsteady scaffolds collapse without warning. Respiratory diseases like silicosis silently ravage many carvers, their lungs filled with silica dust. Chronic coughing, breathlessness, and weakness gradually sap their strength, often culminating in premature death. Medical knowledge is primitive, and infections from wounds worsen without treatment. Physically, stone carving demands a blend of immense strength, precision, and endurance. Every strike must be perfect. A single error can ruin hours of painstaking work or cause catastrophic injury. Overseers impose brutal quotas, driving workers beyond human limits, punishing failure with beatings or worse. Isolation deepens their suffering. Carvers live in rough camps far from families, cut off from comfort and community. Loneliness and despair gnaw at their spirits, with mental illness and suicides tragically common. Beyond visible dangers, hidden threats abound. Political intrigues entangle artisans. Some are coerced into carving royal propaganda or falsified records, their art twisted to serve rulers' whims. Defiance risks imprisonment, torture, or death. Rivalries among temple factions embroil carvers in dangerous power struggles. The tools themselves pose hazards. Blunt or broken chisels can snap unexpectedly, injuring hands or faces. Protective gear is non-existent. Injuries are treated with rudimentary methods, often ineffectively. Environmental extremes exacerbate hardships. Scorching summers bake skin. Winters bring chilling cold. Water scarcity causes dehydration and heat stroke. Dust storms blind and suffocate. Carvers specializing in delicate ritual carvings bear added pressure. Mistakes risk offending gods, inviting curses or disasters upon the land. The spiritual weight adds mental strain. Toxic minerals like malachite and cinnabar, used for pigments and finishes, silently poison many artisans. Chronic exposure leads to debilitating illnesses. Apprentices endure harsh initiation, learning under strict masters who sometimes punish severely. Their youth faces dangers from inexperience and abuse. Social hierarchies complicate lives. Carvers navigate loyalty to patrons, envy from peers, and survival in harsh camps. Some subtly resist by altering carvings or records, risking brutal punishment. Despite overwhelming adversity, stone carvers shape Egypt's legacy. Their creations, monuments, temples, statues echo through millennia, born from sweat, pain, and unyielding human spirit. As you hold your chisel and hammer, dust choking your lungs and sweat blurring your vision, you stand at the crossroads of art and agony, a realm where every strike carries the weight of survival and hope. Imagine yourself stepping into the fiery heart of an ancient Egyptian forge, where metal workers labor amidst roaring flames, clouds of smoke, and molten rivers of glowing metal. Their skilled hands shape the very tools, weapons, and treasures that define a civilization's power and beauty. But beneath the heat and artistry lies a realm of relentless danger, demanding courage, precision, and endurance. The forge is a crucible of extremes. Scorching temperatures blast the workers day after day, the heat pressing down like a physical weight. Molten metal splashes unpredictably, threatening to burn or scar in an instant. The air is thick with toxic fumes rising from smelting ores and burning charcoal poisonous gases that invade lungs and erode health silently but relentlessly. Metal workers breathe in lead, arsenic, mercury, and copper compounds, suffering chronic poisoning that causes tremors, cognitive decline, and eventual death. Yet no mask or filter shields them. Survival depends on willpower alone. Their tools are heavy, brutal extensions of their strength and skill. Hammers pound with rhythmic force against anvils. Chisels chip intricate designs into cooling metal. Precision is paramount. One slip can shatter a prized blade or cause fatal injury. The physical toll is immense. Strained muscles, joint pain, burnt skin, and scarred eyes from the relentless glare of fire. Beyond the forge's obvious dangers, metalworkers face social stigma and isolation. Though their craft sustains kingdoms, they live apart in enclaves or workshops away from cities, bound by guild rules and secrecy. Apprentices endure harsh training and discipline, their failures punished severely. Hidden hazards multiply their risks. Explosions from overheated crucibles or accidental ignition of charcoal stores can devastate entire workshops. Structural collapses or falling debris from poorly maintained facilities cause injuries and death. The psychological burden weighs heavily. Metalworkers operate under intense pressure to meet deadlines, craft flawless pieces for royalty, and avoid catastrophic mistakes. Anxiety, exhaustion, and trauma from accidents shadow their lives. Metalworkers are also enmeshed in the politics of power. They craft royal regalia, weapons for pharaohs, and ceremonial artifacts imbued with divine symbolism. Errors can bring divine displeasure or political ruin. Some artisans are forced to produce propaganda or falsify inscriptions, risking severe consequences for refusal. Competition and sabotage lurk among guilds. Rivalries lead to stolen designs, ruined works, and violence. Trust is rare. Survival demands vigilance beyond the forge. Metalworkers often embark on perilous expeditions to mine rare ores in hostile lands. These journeys expose them to dangers from wild beasts, hostile tribes, and harsh climates. Despite these hardships, metalworkers hold an honored place. Their mastery shapes civilization's strength and splendor, blending artistry and survival. As you stand here, hammer raised, sweat stinging your eyes, surrounded by smoke and fire, you enter a world where creation dances with destruction, a world where every strike carries the weight of life and legacy. Imagine stepping into the dimly lit, incense-filled chambers of ancient Egypt, where embalmers perform the sacred rites of mummification. These skilled artisans carry the weighty responsibility of preparing bodies for the afterlife, preserving them with meticulous care and ancient knowledge passed down through generations. Yet behind the solemn rituals lies a world of hidden dangers, chemical hazards, spiritual burdens, and societal pressures that press heavily upon their lives. The embalming process involves handling toxic substances such as natron salts, resins, oils, and various preservatives. Prolonged exposure to these chemicals causes skin irritations, respiratory issues, and sometimes fatal poisoning. The air is thick with fumes from heated resins and spices, which, while sacred, slowly wear down the embalmer's health. Protective equipment was non-existent, making each ritual a gamble with their own well-being. Their work demands extraordinary precision and patience. Each step, from removing internal organs to carefully wrapping the body in linen, must be executed flawlessly. A single mistake could dishonor the deceased, jeopardize their passage to the afterlife, and bring shame upon the embalmers themselves. The spiritual significance of their role adds immense psychological strain. Embalmers walk the thin line between the realms of the living and the dead, wielding secret knowledge of sacred rituals and mystical spells. They are both revered and feared, isolated from the wider community to avoid contaminating the living with death's shadow. Secrecy governs their craft. Sacred texts and embalming techniques are closely guarded. Revealing these secrets to the uninitiated could result in exile or worse. This burden of secrecy isolates embalmers socially, fostering suspicion and stigma, even as they perform one of the most vital roles in Egyptian society. Physical dangers are ever present. Embalmers wield sharp instruments to remove internal organs, risking cuts and infections in unsanitary conditions. Contact with decaying bodies exposes them to harmful bacteria and parasites. Without modern medicine, even minor wounds could become fatal. The emotional toll is profound. Constant exposure to death and grief, coupled with societal isolation, weighs heavily on their mental health. Many embalmers suffer from anxiety, depression, or worse, haunted by the spirits they seek to appease. Beyond their primary duties, embalmers often perform funerary rites, reciting prayers and guiding souls, further entangling them in the spiritual realm. This dual role intensifies the weight of responsibility and the risk of spiritual repercussions. Hidden dangers also arise from political intrigue. Embalmers serving the elite or royal families navigate treacherous courts where favor can shift quickly, and failure carries severe consequences. Their proximity to power makes them targets of envy and suspicion. Training is rigorous and secretive, often beginning in youth. Apprenticeships are demanding, with punishments for mistakes harsh and unforgiving. The pressure to master this sacred craft leaves little room for error. Despite these perils, embalmers hold a revered status. Their expertise ensures the continuation of traditions and the hope of eternal life, bridging mortal existence and the divine. As you imagine yourself here, carefully applying resins, wrapping linen with reverent hands, and whispering sacred prayers, you step into a world where life and death intertwine, a world of solemn duty, shadowed by unseen risks and profound mysteries. Imagine yourself deep within the shadows of an ancient tomb under construction, where tomb builders labor in cramped, dark, and dusty chambers to carve eternal resting places for pharaohs and nobles. Their work is critical to the afterlife beliefs of ancient Egypt, but fraught with danger from collapsing ceilings and poor air, quality to the relentless pressure of secrecy and superstition. The tomb's confined spaces strain bodies and minds. Builders use primitive tools, chisels, mallets, and copper saws, to carve intricate chambers, passageways, and elaborate hieroglyphic reliefs, often beneath great depths. The risk of cave-ins or rockfalls is ever present, threatening to trap or crush workers in suffocating darkness. Dust and fine stone particles fill the air, causing respiratory ailments like chronic bronchitis and silicosis, debilitating workers over time. Secrecy surrounds tomb building. Workers are sworn to silence and isolated from their communities to prevent knowledge leaks. The psychological toll of isolation, fear of retribution, and the burden of secrecy weighs heavily. Punishments for betrayal or mistakes range from harsh beatings to execution. Hidden dangers include pockets of toxic gases trapped underground, such as methane or carbon dioxide, which could cause dizziness, unconsciousness, or death. The ever-present fear of curses believed to protect tombs fuels anxiety among workers, many of whom perform rituals to ward off malevolent spirits. Physical exhaustion and malnutrition compound the dangers. Builders endure long hours in stifling heat with limited food and water. Chronic fatigue, muscle strains, and dehydration are common afflictions. Sudden Nile floods posed another threat. Underground chambers could quickly flood during inundations, trapping workers without escape. Early warning systems were primitive, relying on experienced guides and local knowledge. Political intrigue adds a darker layer. Tomb builders tied to royal projects operate under intense scrutiny. Loyalty is constantly tested to prevent tomb robbery conspiracies. Failures or suspicions could lead to imprisonment or death. Social stigma weighs on builders. Though essential, their dangerous work is undervalued. Many live in poverty, struggling for basic necessities. Psychological pressures mount as builders grapple with mortality, working daily beside symbols of death. Nightmares, anxiety, and despair haunt many. Apprentices face brutal training under harsh masters. Mistakes are punished severely, teaching obedience but breeding fear. Builders develop close bonds for survival, sharing whispered stories, rituals, and small comforts amid the darkness. Despite hardship, tomb builders shape Egypt's legacy, carving eternal homes for pharaohs believed to journey beyond death. As you imagine chiseling stone in dim light, dust-choking lungs, sweat-stinging eyes, you enter a world where life and death entwine, a world built on sacrifice, silence, and ever-present dread. Imagine yourself in the warm, dusty courtyard of an ancient Egyptian pottery workshop. As a potter, your hands shape clay into vessels that hold water, grain, oils, and sacred offerings. Your craft is essential to everyday life and religious rituals. Yet beneath the surface lies a world of hidden dangers, both physical and environmental. Potters labor long hours near blazing kilns, their skin exposed to intense heat that causes burns and scalds. Molten glazes and hot tools pose further hazards. Handling wet clay exposes skin to harsh minerals and contaminants, often causing dermatitis, infections, and chronic skin conditions. The physical demands are relentless. Heavy sacks of clay must be lifted and carried. Shaping vessels requires repetitive motions that strain muscles, tendons, and joints. Many potters suffer chronic pain, arthritis, and physical decline from years of toil. The air is thick with dust-fine particles from dry clay, ash, and powdered minerals that lodge in lungs, causing respiratory diseases like silicosis and bronchitis. These illnesses weaken bodies over time, often unnoticed until fatal. Beyond physical dangers, potters face economic uncertainty. Market fluctuations, seasonal Nile floods, and droughts threaten livelihoods. Workshops are often cramped, poorly ventilated, and hot, increasing risks of heat exhaustion and illness. Hidden hazards lurk in materials. Toxic minerals like lead, copper, and arsenic in glazes and dyes poison workers. Prolonged inhalation of kill fumes damages lungs and overall health. Socially, potters belong to tight guilds with strict rules and harsh apprenticeships. Apprentices endure grueling training, strict discipline, and social isolation. Potters also produce ritual vessels with sacred significance. The pressure to create flawless works imbues the craft with spiritual stress. Environmental challenges affect production. Water scarcity limits clay preparation. Floods can destroy stock and facilities, causing financial ruin. Some potters specialize in glazing or painting, using toxic pigments that further endanger health. Exposure to heavy metals causes chronic diseases and neurological issues. Apprentices often face exploitation and abuse in workshops. Limited social mobility traps many in poverty and hardship. Additional hidden dangers include sudden kill explosions caused by improper firing or fuel storage, which could decimate workshops and cause fatal injuries. Potters also contend with the psychological strain of creating objects meant to hold sacred offerings, carrying a heavy responsibility to meet divine expectations and avoid curses. Moreover, seasonal labor demands fluctuate dramatically, forcing potters into precarious work cycles, with periods of intense labor followed by scarcity, affecting mental and physical health. Despite risks, potters are vital to Egypt's economy and culture. Their vessels sustain daily life, carry sacred offerings, and preserve rituals. As you mold clay on the wheel, feeling Earth's coolness under your fingers and heat from the kiln, you enter a world where creativity meets peril, a craft shaping life's essentials, yet shadowed by hidden dangers. Imagine yourself in the quiet chamber of an ancient Egyptian scriptorium, where scribes work tirelessly, surrounded by papyrus scrolls, reed brushes, and ink pots. These learned artisans hold the kingdom's most sacred knowledge, recording laws, religious texts, royal decrees, and historical chronicles. Yet behind this scholarly labor lies a world of hidden dangers, pressures, and burdens invisible to most. Scribes spend countless hours hunched over fragile papyrus, their eyes straining in dim candlelight or filtered sunlight. The repetitive motions of writing cause crippling cramps, arthritis, and tendinitis in their hands and wrists. Many suffer chronic pain and physical decline, their bodies worn down by the demands of delicate calligraphy. Inhaling soot-based ink fumes and fine dust from papyrus fibers irritates their lungs and skin. Some inks contain toxic metals like lead, copper, and arsenic, slowly poisoning scribes over time and leading to neurological decline and premature death. Poor ventilation and long hours exacerbate these health risks. The role demands absolute accuracy. A single mistake in sacred texts, legal documents, or royal records could bring ruin, punishment, or death. Scribes labor under intense scrutiny from temple priests, royal officials, and political patrons. Rivalries and court intrigues permeate their ranks, where favor is fleeting and perilous. Secrecy binds many scribes. They guard sacred knowledge and forbidden texts, sworn to silence by sacred oaths. Breaches risk exile, imprisonment, or execution. This weight fosters isolation and mistrust, even among fellow scribes. Mental tolls run deep. Mastering complex hieroglyphs, demotic script, and foreign languages demands sharp memory and constant study. Anxiety, stress, and burnout are common. Some scribes develop obsessive behaviors or depression under pressure. Scribes also serve as advisors and historians, shaping narratives that influence religion and politics. Their words carry immense power, making them targets of envy, intrigue, and danger. Apprentices endure harsh training and strict discipline. Mistakes invite severe punishment, instilling fear and conformity. Some scribes secretly resist altering texts, preserving forbidden knowledge, or aiding dissenters at great personal risk. Physical dangers extend beyond illness. The theft or destruction of precious scrolls during political turmoil threatens scribes' livelihoods and lives. Workshops are often overcrowded, poorly lit, and uncomfortable, breeding fatigue and disease. Socially, scribes balance respect and suspicion. They are valued for knowledge, yet feared for influence and secrets. Ethical dilemmas haunt scribes, forced to craft propaganda or rewrite history under duress, challenging conscience and survival. Additional hidden hazards include the psychological strain of maintaining secrets that could topple regimes or alter sacred truths. This burden isolates scribes from loved ones and foments paranoia. The intense focus required to decode and transcribe ancient scripts sometimes leads to altered perception or spiritual experiences, blurring lines between reality and myth. Despite the dangers, Scribes underpin Egyptian civilization. They preserve culture, law, and faith, shaping the legacy that echoes through millennia. As you steady your brush, fingers stained with ink, and gaze upon endless scrolls, you enter a realm where knowledge is power, and every word is a step on a razor's edge, a world where survival depends on wisdom, secrecy, and courage. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the mighty Nile River, where fishermen cast their nets into waters teeming with life and hidden dangers. Their daily labor sustains entire communities, yet their work is fraught with peril, demanding skill, resilience, and respect for the river's moods. The Nile's currents are powerful and unpredictable, capable of dragging even the strongest swimmer beneath the surface. Sudden storms surge swiftly across the water, battering fragile boats and tossing fishermen into churning depths. Sharp reeds and concealed rocks cause cuts, bruises, and broken bones. Silent crocodiles and venomous snakes lurk beneath, ready to strike with deadly precision. Fishermen endure long hours exposed to the blazing sun, risking heat stroke, sunburn, and fatigue. Biting insects swarm relentlessly, spreading disease. Prolonged contact with water causes skin ailments and infections. Muscles ache from hauling heavy nets, and exhaustion is constant. Economic uncertainty compounds hardships. Fish populations fluctuate with the Nile's flood cycles, often declining due to overfishing. Competition among villages breeds tension, sometimes erupting into violent conflicts over prime fishing spots. Hidden dangers include waterborne diseases like schistosomiasis and parasitic infections that silently weaken many fishermen. Contaminated water sources and poor sanitation exacerbate these health risks. Human threats loom as well. River bandits and pirates ambush boats to steal catch and supplies. Political rivalries among tribes along the Nile's banks endanger safe passage, forcing fishermen into cautious negotiations and alliances. Social isolation marks the life of fishermen. They spend nights on boats or remote riverbanks, far from family and community support, fostering loneliness and mental strain. The relentless cycles of fishing and travel wear on mind and body alike. Environmental changes add further unpredictability. Shifting river paths, droughts, and floods alter fishing grounds, forcing longer, riskier journeys. The subtle rhythms of the Nile become a puzzle to decode, demanding constant vigilance. Technological limitations hinder safety and efficiency. Without modern boats or nets, fishermen rely on fragile vessels and hand-woven gear, making accidents common. Storms can easily overwhelm, leaving crews stranded or lost. Ritual and superstition deeply entwine with their lives. Fishermen offer prayers and sacrifices to river gods, seeking protection from natural dangers and supernatural wrath. These beliefs provide comfort, but also add psychological weight. Additional dangers include hazardous encounters with hippopotamuses, territorial and aggressive creatures capable of capsizing boats or attacking swimmers. Navigating their territory demands skill and caution. Furthermore, fishermen often contend with fluctuating market demands and the pressures of trade intermediaries who can exploit their labor, reducing profits and increasing financial instability. Despite overwhelming risks, fishermen's expertise and courage feed Egypt's heart. Their intimate bond with the Nile shapes a fragile balance between survival and reverence. As you haul in heavy nets under the scorching sun, feel the cool Nile water on your skin, and hear the restless river's song, you enter a world where life depends on skill, courage, and respect for the river's secrets. Imagine yourself under the blazing Egyptian sun, standing in vast yards where brickmakers labor to craft the essential building blocks of an empire. Using mud, clay, and straw, these artisans hand mold bricks or press them into wooden molds, then sun-dry or kill-fire them into hardened forms. These bricks become the walls of homes, temples, and monuments, yet behind their creation lies a world of hardship and hidden dangers. The labor is unrelenting. Brickmakers carry heavy loads of wet clay, knead and mix materials by hand, and mold bricks with repetitive, exhausting motions. Blisters, cuts, and abrasions on hands and arms are common, often leading to infections without proper care. Constant contact with wet clay and mud exposes skin to irritants and parasitic diseases endemic to the Nile region. Dung. Temperatures soar beyond 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, risking severe burns and heat stroke. Toxic fumes from fuels and fired materials fill the air, causing respiratory ailments that worsen over time. The threat of kill collapse or explosive flare-ups lingers with every firing cycle, threatening life and livelihoods. Dust clouds laden with clay particles, sand, and ash envelop workspaces. Inhaling this dust leads to chronic respiratory diseases like silicosis and bronchitis, often fatal without treatment. Protective equipment is unheard of. Workers breathe danger daily. Economic instability compounds physical risks. Market demand fluctuates with Nile flood cycles and political stability. Droughts reduce water for clay preparation. Floods can wash away drying bricks and damage infrastructure, forcing costly rebuilding. Social stigma and harsh working conditions isolate brickmakers. Many live in shanty towns near kilns, far from families and support. Isolation breeds despair, depression, and substance abuse. Additional hazards include exposure to naturally occurring toxic minerals in clay deposits, arsenic, lead, and mercury, leading to chronic poisoning, neurological damage, and early death. Seasonal weather extremes worsen hardship. Scorching summers cause dehydration and sunstroke. Cold winters strain health. Repetitive strain injuries, including tendinitis, arthritis, and chronic back pain, are widespread, shortening working lives and increasing poverty. Stack collapses and workplace accidents are common, sometimes fatal. Insufficient training and safety measures exacerbate risks. Child labor is widespread. Young apprentices endure brutal conditions, learning the trade, facing abuse and injury. Brickmakers contend with resource scarcity, limited firewood for kilns, water shortages, and clay depletion, forcing longer hours and riskier work. Despite immense risks, brickmakers' endurance and skill forge Egypt's enduring legacy. Their silent sacrifice underpins the civilization's grandeur. As you mold clay and carry bricks beneath the unyielding sun, sweat mixing with dust and muscle aching, you step into a world where creation and danger walk hand in hand, a world hidden beneath Egypt's timeless monuments. Imagine yourself in the bustling workshops along the Nile, where textile workers, spinners, weavers, and dyers labor to transform coarse flax fibers into the fine linens that clothe pharaohs, priests, and commoners alike. Their skilled hands create fabrics vital to everyday life and sacred rituals. Yet beneath this artistry lies a world fraught with hidden dangers and relentless toil. The physical demands are exhausting. Textile workers spend long hours bent over looms, weaving intricate patterns with nimble fingers. The repetitive motions cause chronic joint pain, tendinitis, and muscle fatigue. Eyes strain under dim lighting or flickering candles, leading to persistent headaches and vision deterioration. Spinners inhale clouds of flax dust and fibers, irritating lungs and provoking respiratory diseases such as bronchitis and silicosis. Dyers immerse themselves in vats of potent natural dyes, many containing toxic metals like lead, copper, and arsenic. Prolonged exposure results in skin rashes, dermatitis, and systemic poisoning. The smoke and fumes from kilns and hearths further compromise respiratory health. Workshops are often cramped, poorly ventilated, and stiflingly hot, compounding exhaustion and increasing the risk of heat stroke. Seasonal demands and tight deadlines push workers beyond endurance, leading to accidents and mental fatigue. Socially, many textile workers are women and children, vulnerable to exploitation and harsh discipline. Economic instability forces relentless labor with minimal rest or protection. Hidden hazards multiply their plight. Toxic waste runoff from dyeing contaminates local water sources, causing illness in communities. Flax fibers harbor molds and fungi, triggering allergies and respiratory distress. The high flammability of dried flax and dye materials poses constant fire risks, with devastating workshop fires recorded. Nile floods unpredictably disrupt raw material supplies and workshop operations, causing financial instability. Apprentices endure rigorous, often brutal training, facing severe punishments for mistakes. Guilds enforce strict hierarchies, limiting social mobility. Psychological burdens weigh heavily. Monotonous high-pressure work breeds anxiety, depression, and burnout. Workers face social isolation from long hours and workshop segregation. Additional dangers include injuries from sharp weaving tools, repetitive strain from hand spinning, and chronic chemical exposure without safety measures. Seasonal droughts worsen water scarcity for flax cultivation, impacting livelihoods. Beyond the physical, textile workers carry spiritual responsibilities. Producing ceremonial cloths and ritual garments imbues their work with sacred significance and pressure to meet divine standards. Workshops often face theft, sabotage, or political interference, adding instability. Despite overwhelming risks, textile workers form the fabric of Egyptian civilization, their art and labor underpinning culture, economy, and spirituality. As you feel threads slip through your fingers, hear looms' rhythmic hum, and inhale pungent dyes, you enter a world where creativity intertwines with peril beneath Egypt's radiant sun. Imagine yourself plunging beneath the shimmering surface of the Nile, where quarry divers risk their lives to retrieve precious stones from the riverbed. These daring workers descend into murky waters, battling swift currents, jagged rocks, and unseen predators. Their dangerous work provides the raw materials for Egypt's monumental architecture, yet every dive brings life-threatening peril. The crushing pressure of the deep presses upon their bodies, limiting dive times and causing physical strain. Without modern breathing apparatus, they rely solely on breath-holding, pushing their lungs to limits while scouring the riverbed. Repeated dives exhaust muscles and lungs, demanding extraordinary endurance and resilience. Visibility beneath the water is poor, concealing lurking threats. Crocodiles glide silently, venomous snakes coil in submerged vegetation, and territorial fish dart unpredictably. Sharp stones and hidden underwater drop-offs can cause injury or entrapment. Sudden whirlpools and underwater caves increase risk exponentially, turning the riverbed into a treacherous maze. Cold river temperatures sap strength, risking hypothermia, especially after repeated exposure. Cuts and scrapes from jagged stones often become infected due to unsanitary conditions. The constant fear of drowning shadows every dive, compounded by exhaustion and panic. Beyond physical dangers, quarry divers face psychological stress. Isolation in the murky depths, fear of unseen threats, and the burden of knowing a single mistake can be fatal. The river's silence amplifies anxiety. Waterborne diseases like schistosomiasis, contracted through prolonged skin contact with contaminated waters, weaken many divers over time, often without cure. Divers usually operate in coordinated teams, relying on signals and trust. Miscommunication can lead to fatal accidents, stranding, or drowning crew members. Economic hardship pushes divers to risk beyond safe limits, driven by quotas and harsh overseers. Failure to deliver stones risks punishment or loss of livelihood. Training is informal and perilous, passed through observation and oral tradition. Many novices face deadly mistakes early in their careers. Additional hidden dangers include sudden floods during the Nile's annual inundation, which can trap divers underwater or wash away equipment. Some divers use primitive diving aids, hollow reeds to breathe air while submerged, but these increase risk if blocked or broken. Quarry divers also contend with injuries from lifting heavy stones underwater, leading to muscular strain and long-term disabilities. Exposure to cold and wet conditions increases susceptibility to infections such as pneumonia. Despite the dangers, quarry divers' bravery and skill underpin Egypt's lasting monuments. Their labor forms the foundation of temples, pyramids, and statues that echo through time. As you plunge into the Nile's depths, lungs burning, eyes straining in darkness, you enter a realm where courage and peril intertwine beneath silent waters. Hey guys! Tonight we arrive at the final chapter of our journey, exploring the most dangerous jobs in ancient Egypt. As you settle in, ready to let your mind drift gently away, imagine the vast desert night stretching out above you. A silent canopy filled with stars, ancient and eternal. Picture the desert sands, cool now under the moon's soft glow, whispering the secrets of countless travelers who once crossed these lands. Think of the Nile's slow, soothing flow, carrying life and stories along its winding path. The river's gentle murmur is a lullaby, wrapping the land in calm. Recall the brave souls we've met, the desert guides who read the stars to navigate shifting dunes, stone carvers shaping eternity from granite, metal workers forging strength and beauty in fiery forges, embalmers who bridged worlds, fishermen wrestling the unpredictable river, and the many others whose hands shaped a civilization at great personal risk. Now, imagine all their struggles and triumphs merging into the quiet night. Their courage and resilience are threads woven into the very fabric of this ancient land, connecting past to present. Feel that legacy surround you, a warm embrace as you let go of the day. As your breath slows and deepens, picture yourself reclining beside the Nile's calm waters, palms swaying gently in a soft breeze. The stars overhead shimmer like distant jewels, each a silent witness to the passage of time and the dreams of those who came before. In this peaceful moment, imagine the soft glow of oil lamps flickering in distant temples, casting dancing shadows that tell stories of gods, kings, and common folk alike. Hear the faint echoes of ancient songs carried on the wind, a melody of life, death, and renewal. Let your muscles unwind as the night's cool air brushes your skin, carrying the scent of lotus and myrrh. Feel the steady rhythm of your heart, slowing to match the timeless pulse of the desert night. Remember, The strength of those ancient workers was not just in their hands, but in their hearts, a steadfast hope that their labor would endure beyond their mortal days. Their faith in the eternal carried them through hardship and danger. Now, as your eyelids grow heavy, imagine yourself floating gently down the Nile, cradled by the water's embrace. The current guides you slowly, carrying away worries, fear, and fatigue. The river sings a soft, ancient song just for you, a melody of peace and rest. In this dreamlike drift, sense the vastness of the desert sky stretching endlessly above, stars like watchful guardians. Each twinkle reminds you that you are never alone. The past and present entwine, supporting and surrounding you with silent strength. As your thoughts become soft and hazy, picture the desert wind whispering tales of courage, resilience, and gentle endings. The night wraps you in quiet comfort, inviting your spirit to rest and rejuvenate. Feel your body sinking deeper into calm, your mind slipping softly into dreams. The world around you fades into soothing shadows, safe and serene. Let go completely. Surrender to the quiet, the darkness, the gentle night that holds you tenderly. Remember, like those ancient souls, you carry strength born of endurance and hope. As stars watch over you, drift peacefully toward rest, cradled in the timeless embrace of night. Good night and sweet dreams.